Welcome to Life Stories. What would you do if the people you loved most turned their backs on you? Imagine this. You've sacrificed your entire life to hold your family together, but one night on Christmas Eve, your father demands you leave. No explanation, no apology, just the cold, harsh words, "You're a burden." You've paid the bills, kept the house running, but now they're telling you to walk away. You have every reason to stay, but deep down, you know that the only way to save yourself is to leave. This is the story of one woman's journey from self-sacrifice to freedom and the price she had to pay to find it. Stick with us as we dive into a tale of family, betrayal, and the courage it takes to break free from the chains of love. Let's begin. The evening was cold, the kind of chill that nipped at your skin even through thick winter coats. Claire stepped out of the bus and into the dimly lit street, the scent of freshly brewed coffee still lingering on her coat sleeves. It was Christmas Eve, but in her world, there was no sparkle, no joy, just the endless hum of responsibility. A steady job at a small office, an apartment she could barely afford, and a family that depended on her more than they cared to admit. She walked down the path to her childhood home, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The old house sat at the edge of Chicago, tucked away behind rows of overgrown shrubs and fading fences. It was a place that once held warmth, now only inhabited by cold glances and words sharp enough to cut through any semblance of peace. Claire had been the pillar, the one who held it all together when things fell apart. Her father, Michael, lost his job 3 years ago and hadn't been able to keep a steady one since. Her mother, Ellen, only worked part-time at a local grocery store, and her younger brother, Jake, was still in high school, trying to keep his head down and avoid the drama that surrounded them. The smell of ham and mashed potatoes greeted her as she entered the house, but it wasn't enough to mask the tension that hung in the air. The Christmas tree in the corner was poorly decorated, the same cheap string lights that had been used for the past few years. Her father sat at the head of the table, his gaze fixed on the ceiling, as if it held all the answers to his life. Ellen hovered in the kitchen, placing the final touches on the dinner. Jake sat silently at the table, his eyes darting between his parents and his older sister. Claire could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. There was something off about tonight, something she couldn't shake. Her father slammed his knife onto the table, the sound of metal on wood louder than any Christmas cheer. Everyone froze. His voice cut through the silence, a cold knife in itself. "Claire," he said, his eyes locked onto hers, "you're a burden. You can't live here anymore." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. For a moment, she wondered if she had heard him wrong. But his eyes, the stone-cold anger in them, told her otherwise. Ellen let out a dry laugh, trying to mask the panic that was rising in her, but it was clear this wasn't a joke. Claire felt her heart sink into her stomach as her brother Jake froze mid-bite, fork hovering in the air. "You heard me," Michael repeated, his voice lower this time, but firm. "You've stayed here long enough. This is my house, and I'm done. You need to move out." The words hung in the air, suffocating her. She had stayed because they needed her, because she could not turn her back on them. But now, on this Christmas Eve, they had made their decision. They didn't need her anymore. Not in the way she thought they did. Claire set her fork down slowly, her mind racing. "What did you just say?" she managed to ask, her voice shaking. "You're no longer welcome here," Michael spat, his eyes cold and unforgiving. "Time for you to go." Claire's heart ached as she realized that she had become nothing more than a tool in their eyes. A tool they were discarding when they no longer had any use for her. She had given them everything. Her time, her money, her sacrifices. But now they wanted her gone. Her mother stayed silent, eyes glued to the floor. Claire could see the exhaustion in her posture, the way her shoulders slumped under the weight of the years. Jake, her brother, looked at their father as if seeing him for the first time, like the man sitting at the table wasn't the father he had grown up with, but a stranger. "All right," Claire said finally, her voice steady, though her insides were screaming. "If that's what you want, I'll go. She stood up, her legs shaky but determined, and took her plate to the sink. She didn't need to make a scene. They had made their decision, and she would make hers. She wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to cry. She would leave quietly, but they would feel the absence of her in ways they couldn't even begin to understand. As she packed her clothes in her room, Tyler knocked softly on her door. His voice was barely a whisper. "Are you really leaving?" His red eyes betrayed the fear he had been holding back. Claire didn't know how to answer him. She had always been there for him, the one who protected him from their parents' coldness. But now, he would have to fend for himself. And it broke her heart to know that he would have to live in a home where the warmth had long since faded. "You can't leave," he said, his voice trembling. "Who's going to pay the bills, the electricity, the internet?" Claire exhaled slowly. "I know, but I can't keep living like this, Tyler. I can't be their walking wallet anymore." Tyler stayed silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. "What about you? Where will you go?" "I'll stay with Marissa for a few days. I've got enough saved to get a place of my own. Don't worry about me." Tyler looked down at his hands, fists clenched tight. "They don't deserve you," he said softly. "But you've got to look after yourself now. I'll be okay." Claire nodded, giving him a tight smile. "I'll text you every day. Don't forget that." As Tyler left her room, Claire glanced back at the house one last time. There was no turning back now. She could hear the hum of the TV in the living room, the sound of her parents pretending nothing had happened. The world they had built together was falling apart, and she knew she couldn't be the one to hold it together anymore. As she walked out into the cold, the wind biting at her face, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: freedom. For the first time, she was free from the chains that had bound her, and for the first time, she felt alive. How would you react if your family asked you to leave on Christmas Eve after everything you've done for them? Have you ever had to make the painful decision to leave someone behind for your own well-being? Claire's life was about to take a turn she never expected. But was she truly ready to face the fallout from her decision? Or had she just set off a chain of events that would haunt her forever? Claire hadn't expected it to feel like this. When she stepped into Marissa's apartment, suitcase in hand, her body ached with a strange mixture of relief and fear. The apartment was small, with only 2 bedrooms, but it was warm and hers. It was her space. The faint smell of fresh coffee lingered in the air, and Marissa, as always, greeted her with open arms and a tired smile. "Stay as long as you need," Marissa said, leading Claire into the living room. The small apartment was a stark contrast to the cold, suffocating house Claire had just left behind. Here there were no demands, no expectations, no biting words, just silence, peace, and the knowledge that she was free, at least for now. The first few days were filled with the mundane: work, meals with Marissa, late-night conversations about anything and everything. But underneath it all, Claire felt the tension building, like a storm waiting to break. She had left, but the past still clung to her like the cold, its presence lurking in every corner of her mind. It was on the 3rd day that the first text came through. "The power's been shut off. Dad's screaming all over the house." The message was from Tyler. Claire stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She had expected it. She knew they wouldn't just sit back and let her go. But hearing it, reading it, it was different. Her family was falling apart without her, but she had made her choice. She couldn't go back. Not now. She didn't reply, not because she didn't care, but because she had cared too much for too long. She had given them everything she had, and it was never enough. The following days passed with more texts, more calls, each one more frantic than the last. Her mother's voice on the other end of the line, trembling with fear and confusion. Her father's threats, like a bitter echo from the past. The tension inside Claire built until it was unbearable. She had cut them off, turned off the utilities, severed the financial lifeline that had held them together for years. And now they were paying the price. But the truth gnawed at her, like a bitter taste she couldn't shake. Was she really helping them, Or was she simply punishing them for their failures? Could she live with the guilt of leaving them behind, knowing they would struggle without her? The questions kept her awake at night, tossing and turning in the small, quiet apartment. She had made the right choice, hadn't she? She had to. But it didn't feel like that. Not anymore. It was the phone call on the fifth night that changed everything. Joanna, her mother's voice trembled through the line, and Claire's chest tightened. Where are you? What have you done? You've turned everything off. There's no power, no internet, no warmth in this house anymore. You think you've fixed everything? You think this is better? Her mother's words were frantic, desperate. Claire closed her eyes, pinching the bridge of her nose. She had expected this. She had known it was coming. But hearing her mother, her voice so small, so broken, it hit her harder than she'd imagined. Mom, this is your mess too, Claire said, her voice sharp but steady. You and Dad let things get this bad. I can't be the one to fix it anymore. Please, Claire, don't do this. Ellen's voice cracked. Your father? He doesn't know how to handle this. He's furious. She broke off, her voice hitching in a sob. You're our daughter. We need you. The words hung in the air like a weight. Claire felt her chest tighten as guilt washed over her, a wave that threatened to drown her. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, she found herself whispering into the phone, I can't keep doing this, Mom. I'm not your lifeline anymore. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. And then her mother spoke, so softly Claire almost missed it. I know. The words stung more than she thought they would. Her mother had known all along, hadn't she? She had known how much Claire had given, how much she had sacrificed. And yet they were still here, still expecting Claire to fix everything, to make it all okay. Claire ended the call with a finality that echoed in her bones. She had made her choice. She was done. But even as she set her phone down and stared out the window at the darkened city, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The silence in her apartment felt too loud, too empty. She had left. But had she really escaped? Or was she just running away from the truth? The phone buzzed again, interrupting her thoughts. This time, it was from Tyler. The message was short, simple. Dad's trying to hack into your bank account. Claire froze, her breath catching in her throat. Her heart raced as panic bubbled up in her chest. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about control. Michael was desperate, and Claire realized with a sickening clarity that he wasn't just angry. He was fighting for his last shred of power. And now he was willing to take everything from her. She called Tyler immediately. What's going on? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Tyler's voice was tight, strained. But Dad? He's been going through Mom's old notebooks. He's trying to figure out your passwords. He's not letting this go. Claire's blood ran cold. She had thought she had protected herself. She had changed her passwords, set up layers of security, but Michael was relentless. He wouldn't stop until he had control over her, until he had everything back in his grasp. And Claire realized, with a jolt, that it wasn't just the house, the bills, the money. It was her. He was trying to control her. What do I do? Tyler asked, his voice trembling. Claire didn't know. For the first time in a long time, she didn't know. She had left to escape, to find peace. But peace had turned into a war she didn't know how to fight. Do you think Claire made the right choice by cutting ties with her family? Or is she being too harsh? Is it possible to truly escape someone who still holds so much power over you? As Claire sat there, her mind racing with fear and confusion, she knew one thing for certain. Things were far from over. The battle with her father was just beginning. And she wasn't sure she was ready for what came next. Claire had always been the one to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders. For years, she had been the one her family leaned on, the one who kept the house running, who made sure they had enough, who put her own dreams on hold for their survival. But now, standing in front of the door to her old house, a place that had once been her sanctuary, she realized something she hadn't dared to admit before. She wasn't just leaving behind a house. She was leaving behind a lifetime of choices made for her, decisions made in silence, love given in vain. The police had left, her father arrested, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling that everything was slipping away. Her father's words still echoed in her mind, each one a punch, each one a scar. "You will regret this," he had hissed. The rage in his eyes, the way he had tried to force his way into her life once again, left Claire with a bitter aftertaste. How had it come to this? How had the man who had once held her hand, taught her to ride a bike, become a stranger who could no longer see her as his daughter? The house was empty now, her father gone, her mother silent. But in the stillness of the night, Claire could almost hear the echoes of their voices, her mother's desperation, her father's anger, and somewhere beneath it all, her own guilt. Guilt that she couldn't shake off, no matter how many times she told herself she had done the right thing. Tyler had called her right after the police left. He had sounded scared, but he had also sounded proud. Proud that she had finally stood up for herself, proud that she had walked away. It was the first time in a long while that Claire had heard that tone in his voice, and it gave her a strange comfort. He was finally seeing her, not just as the sister who picked up the pieces, but as a woman who had the right to choose her own life. "You're really done with them, huh?" Tyler had asked, his voice wavering with emotion. Claire knew it wasn't just the fear of their father. It was the weight of the years he had spent silently watching the dysfunction, the years he had quietly endured the same toxic love that had almost broken her. "I am," Claire had replied, and for the first time, it felt like the truth. But as Claire stood in the darkened hallway of Marissa's apartment, staring out the window at the city skyline, a thought lingered in her mind. What would her life be now? Was this what freedom felt like? Or was she just running from the pain that had followed her for so long? The phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. It was a number she didn't recognize, but something inside her urged her to pick up. "Hello?" she answered, her voice tired but steady. "Claire?" The voice on the other end was strained but familiar. "It's your mother. We need to talk." Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this, not after everything that had happened, but here it was. The phone call that would either close the door for good or reopen old wounds. She took a deep breath. "What do you want, Mom?" "I don't know how to fix this," Ellen said quietly, her voice cracked with emotion. I never wanted it to end like this. I never thought you'd walk away, Claire. We're your family." Claire squeezed her eyes shut, fighting the wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. "You don't get it, Mom. You let Dad control everything. You let him destroy this family, and I..." She stopped, her breath shaking. "I couldn't keep enabling it. I couldn't be the one to keep this toxic cycle going." There was a long silence on the other end, and Claire could almost see her mother, sitting in that empty house, trying to make sense of it all. Finally, Ellen spoke again, her voice small and fragile. "I didn't know how much you were sacrificing," she whispered. "I didn't realize how much pain you were in until it was too late. You were always so strong, Claire. I thought you'd always be there, that we'd always have you. But now I see the damage." Claire closed her eyes, her chest tight with a mix of anger and sorrow. "I had to leave, Mom. I had to do it for me." "I know," Ellen replied, her voice barely a whisper. "But that doesn't mean I don't miss you. That doesn't mean I don't want to fix this." Claire felt a lump form in her throat, a tenderness she hadn't expected to feel after everything. "You can't fix it, Mom," she said softly. "Not anymore." The call ended with a quiet click, and Claire sat in silence for a long time, the weight of her decision sinking in. She had walked away, but the pain hadn't disappeared. It was still there, lingering in the spaces between her breaths, in the words her mother had said, in the absence of a family that was no longer what it had once been. Later that evening, as Claire sat on the couch in Marissa's apartment, she felt the phone buzz in her hand. Another text from Tyler. "I'm leaving tomorrow," it read. "I'm done. No more waiting." Claire stared at the message, her heart aching with both pride and sorrow. Tyler had made it. He had taken the steps she had taken, even though it hadn't been easy for him. He was breaking free too. and it was a freedom she knew he deserved, just as much as she did. She typed back, her fingers trembling slightly as she hit send. "I'm proud of you, always." The next morning, Tyler moved into his dorm, a few bags in tow, a few quiet words exchanged between them as they hugged goodbye. And for the first time in years, Claire felt like they both had a future to look forward to, separate from the past, separate from the family that had tried to hold them in a grip that no longer made sense. As Claire walked away from the old house, the place where she had once been a prisoner of duty and guilt, she knew she had made the right choice. The past couldn't be undone, but the future was hers to create. And with that knowledge, she took the first step into a life that was entirely her own. What would you do if you were in Claire's shoes? Would you choose freedom at the cost of family, or would you stay and endure the pain for their sake? If you've enjoyed this story, comment 100 and share your thoughts. Where are you watching from? Let's keep this conversation going, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching the Life Stories channel.